Hey guys, welcome to the Deep Take Project. I'm here today with Six, who is a model from Sonoma County. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you too.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about her story and how she's found safety within her community. Can you tell me a little bit more about what got you into modeling?
It all started off with me just kind of like doing everything for fun, honestly. I first started off going ahead and just kind of taking photos on my own time, for class and whatnot, and then from there, after class, and once I was done going to school for it, I was just venturing it, just to kind of keep on pursuing, just creating little portraits of things, of feelings and stuff. So, so I feel like that's more or less the direction that I was going towards in the beginning of the whole venture. And from there, I went ahead and started working on just kind of taking like self-portraits and whatnot, because I was having like a hard time occasionally trying to have people be my subjects, just because I was really bad at giving instructions. So because of that, I was just like, okay, you know what, let me just stop for a second. I get too frustrated. Like I need to I have it in my head, I have to make it out of my head. So that's when I started going ahead and taking self-portraits and whatnot, and just like posting them on social media. And with some time, people started just messaging me, friends at first, asking me if I would be like open to like being their subject for their photos or their video work and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, why not? Like doing it for myself, why not just do it for my friends too? Let's do it. So we went ahead and started doing like little projects together, which was like really nice, because it was kind of like a bonding moment. I feel like every time I work on anything modeling related, it's like a really big bonding moment between me and like whoever I'm working with, because we're making something together. I was able to like create a lot of concepts that just kind of really helped me just like digest a lot of stuff, about myself as a person and like my outlooks on things and whatnot. So that's mainly where it started off. And then with some time, people then started messaging me, people I didn't know, asking if I would be open to working with them or collaborating with them. And next thing you know, I'm doing also like music videos and little commercials and stuff like that, getting paid work through that. And then I found my agency. And then, yeah, at this point in time, just kind of still finding my own personal work here and there just through like friendly connections.
Definitely. So a big piece, I think, a part of your story that I'm really fascinated by is just that, this was like such a huge outlet for you, and we had talked about this on the phone, a couple months ago, but, really it started with like needing to have an outlet or multiple outlets to kind of like process what you were going through internally. You had said that you had dealt with, some depression and like depersonalization. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what that looked like for you?
I would say like a lot of my personal struggle, like kind of growing up, was like having these hard moments where I would try my best to like describe it to someone, and I just couldn't, because they're like physical feelings for me at least, and like things around me that are getting like adjusted, like my reality is a bit adjusted. So it's really hard for me to like tell someone how it feels if they haven't like personally experienced it themselves with my words, which also kind of ties back to me getting frustrated explaining people things, how to do photos. I don't know, just made that connection right now. I'm not good with words, so yeah, I'm just like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm not good with words. So then I was just like, okay, you know what? Like, I can at least show how I feel. I can at least like give like a glimpse, and with the magic of Photoshop and the magic of color grading, it helps push it even more. So yeah, I really used it a lot for that. Um, some of the concepts, a lot of the photos that I took, and a lot of the ones that I have like on my social media, they have like layers to them. There's like an aesthetic layer where it's just like, oh, this looks really cool, really nice, awesome. Um, but then there's kind of like a bit of background, at least for myself. Like I have like an emotional tie to like every single photo that I post, because it either is like recreating a scene or symbolizing something for me. Some of the sets that I've done with depersonalization, I've shown through just like wearing masks, having blank stares, color grading everything to kind of give an illusion of like there's a bit of disconnect between myself and the viewer, which in a way is like a disconnect between myself and myself being the viewer, if that makes any sense. Um, so a lot of stuff like that, and then also like some photos where it kind of gives like a sense of like otherworldliness, if that's the word for it, I want to say. Sometimes that's what it feels like. It feels like it's like I'm sitting here, but yet like it's like a different layer to everything, a different level. I don't know how to explain it.
I
Again,
see.
I'm not great with words.
Like you're like here, but you feel like kind of detached from it a little bit.
Detached a little bit. I feel like a really odd thing is like, example with the depersonalization, right? Is like everything seems like a little bit kind of like further away. I don't even know how to explain it. Like it distorts my vision. It like physically distorts my vision, which is a big sign that like, hey, maybe I'm going through something right now, you know?
Wow.
So, and that just like also is something that I try to put into like the photography that I like am a part of as well, you know? When it comes to like the way everything is edited in post and whatnot. And then not in post, well, I'm acting out. I like to act out a lot of the things that I'm, you know, having shot at.
Yeah, it's almost like you like you're a character in some of these photos, but it's like it's you, but like almost like a different version of you or a part of you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about like if there's a particular photo that was like very impactful to you that really like helped you process something that you were going through in your life at the time, and if you're able to share that with us.
Yeah. God, it's so hard to choose. There's so many.
Yeah, I know,
It's so hard to choose out of all of them. I would
bet.
say maybe one of the most recent ones was this one where I took with Micah.
Okay.
Really nice photographer. Very fun, very nice, very aesthetic photos he takes. And then the funny thing is, though, is that like when I was doing this photo session with him, it wasn't something that was planned. I was literally planning on doing something for Halloween, you know, kind of a thing, with my boyfriend. And then he like messaged me. He was just like, I just had a model cancel. I have the studio. Like, can you please come and like take photos if you're available and whatnot? I was like, yeah, like, why not? It's literally just like 5-10 minutes away from where I was living at the moment. So I headed over there, and I was just like, he kind of gave me like a rough idea of what his concept was, which was like, um, at the time, what I was thinking it was just like a woman wearing like a button-up shirt, you know, and just kind of like taking like cool poses in a living area. And I was doing the movements that I thought he was expecting from me. It was like, well, I kind of want it to like reflect more so like you feeling comfortable and casual living within your own house. And that's why I was just like, okay, you sure? He was just like, yeah. And I was like, all right, well, now we're going to get really dark with this. So, yeah. So now I'm just like looking insanely depressed and dreading and whatnot, you know, which I think is like a really big thing that like a lot of people keep to themselves, you know, feeling lonely inside your own household or being stuck in your own head or just like feeling like, I don't know, I personally feel like waves of like depression or like
Yes. Yeah.
darkness just like looming over me, you know, kind of like a cloud.
Yeah.
So I was trying to show a bit of that within the photos and the poses that I was doing. I didn't post all of the photos just yet because I need to figure out a way how to get back in that folder. I messed things up. But,
Okay.
but the ones that
You'll
I
find
did
it,
post
yeah.
at least show the sense of isolation and also fear. Because I feel
Okay.
like a really big like odd thing that I go through is like a lot of anxiety, you know? So in some of the photos you can see me just kind of curled up, anxious, a little paranoid kind of a thing. It's quiet inside the house. There's no one inside the house, but also like I'm scared of what's outside. I'm scared of
Yeah.
what's in here kind of a thing. So
Right.
a lot of that like edginess to
Yeah.
it, you know, feeling.
Wait, you had said that it's something that's odd that you go through. Why do you feel like it's odd?
I think I would say like when you say like odd that I'm going through, do you mean like the feeling of the depression and whatnot, or like within the household?
Yeah, because you had mentioned the word odd, and in my mind, I was like, oh, I feel like anxiety is like, it feels like it's a universal thing. I know some people don't really feel that, but like, I know what you mean. Like, I mean, I feel anxiety all the time, but I've never really viewed it as odd. So I'm wondering like how you're processing that
Yeah.
emotion.
I feel like for me, I would categorize it as odd because I feel like whenever I hear people talk about like their own personal anxious experiences, it's usually in like in a social setting kind of a
Yeah.
situation, you know, like, oh, I'm really anxious to like meet this person or go to this group setting or like do X, Y, or Z thing that's new. But like I have like just like consistent anxiety, 24/7, you know.
Yeah.
Which I'm sorry for if you feel also all the time.
No,
I'm sorry for everyone that has to feel that all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sending a hug.
But yeah, no, I just like can literally be in my own room, either trying to relax, watching a movie or a TV show, and I just feel like anxious. I'm just like I should be doing something. I should be moving around, and then I'm doing something and moving around within my own house. So I'm just like I still feel like this horrible anxiety, like. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of eating at me.
It's
You know?
it's like a zzz. For me it's like that. Even when I'm doing stuff, it's just like this
Buzzing.
this buzzing
Yeah.
constantly. And even when I'm like sitting down, it's still buzzing and I'm like, someone turn off the buzz. Someone.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a really big part for me. There's that consistent buzzing; it doesn't stop, you know. And then like I don't know, I feel like when it treads onto the, I mean that's still a lot to go through, but I feel like when I experience it too, it's kind of like a mixture of that and a little bit of paranoia too. I mean, like I grew up like in like not the world's greatest setting, you know.
Like your family home.
Yeah, like not exactly the world's greatest setting, household wise and whatnot. So like it caused me to feel insanely uncomfortable like in my own house growing up, and it's really odd because even though I'm like away from that bad setting, I still feel insanely uncomfortable and like paranoid, you know, within my own household at the ripe age that I am. So so I feel like I feel like if someone from outside was to see me, you know, through a little camera and see me just feeling as anxious I am in my own room while everything is completely fine and normal, it would probably be seen as like a little bit odd, you know, just like from an outer person looking inwards, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know. I look over my shoulder a lot when I don't really need to, you know, kind of a thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's just like general paranoia.
Yeah, I would
Of-
say that, and then the anxiety just helps amp it up even more, you know?
And are you at the house where like the chaos like began?
Oh, no.
Different house.
No, yeah, no, different house, yeah.
Okay.
No, different house. Sorry, there was like a thing flying.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, my peripheral vision. I didn't want to get in my eye.
I was like, oh, the paranoia.
Looking over my shoulder. No. No, thankfully I don't live in that house anymore. I was living there for most of my childhood, I want to say. Or at least the important formative years of my life, you know? Like the years where you're like kind of self-discovering and whatnot like that, you know? But thankfully I was able to get away from that. I would say that it was like a lot of like abuse that was going on, you know, within that household. So a lot of like physical abuse that was going on, verbal too, that kind of stuff, you know. And it really sucked because it was something that like I feel like got really internalized within myself to the point that like it still pops up, you know, like the paranoia and whatnot still pops up at this point. Yeah, and also wasn't the world's greatest that it came from, like the people that are supposed to like take care of you and protect you, you know? That definitely wasn't like a helping hand in feeling a lot of trust with the outside world and even myself, you know, because I'm just like, okay, well, am I going to be that kind of a person, you know? I don't know. It caused like a lot of really mixed feelings for me growing up. So it was a lot of that kind of stuff growing up, and like also drug abuse too, you know, from my dad specifically. So just being like a witness to a lot of that kind of stuff too wasn't the world's greatest. And yeah, but thankfully, like around the age of 17, my mom, you know, took me and my sister over to like a women's shelter. So that was really nice for that moment in time. While we were able to kind of just like recollect ourselves and figure out how to get in a safe location, because that's the beauty about the women's shelter, at least, is the fact that like um, it helps you kind of like get away from your abuser, you know, and they can't figure out where you are or anything like that. They have like insanely strict rules, but like all of them insanely necessary
Yes,
to make sure that
absolutely.
no one leaks the location, kind of a thing, you know?
Create the boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. So went into that when I was 17. I realized that like, oh my God, I had like this huge like weight on my back that I wasn't even aware, because I grew up with it, you know? I mean, I always knew something was weird or off or whatever, but I didn't realize how huge of a stark difference of a life I was living from like a usual everyday kind of a life. Um, until I went into that women's shelter, and I realized like, oh my God, I don't have to be scared of every little sound. Like I still am, but like I don't have to be in like, at the time I was like 17, right? Skin was flaring up with acne horribly, and the anxiety was not helping it. Yeah, and that's when I realized like, oh my God, like this is like literally eating me from the inside out, because I moved in there and after like 3 weeks it was all gone. I was just like, that's insane. Like I guess like a really big thing is like I come from like a Hispanic household, you know? So they're like really down on the whole thing. They like push it down like mental health. What
Not
even?
talked about.
You
What
know,
is that?
They're like, no, you're just,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say the word.
Yeah,
you know, you're being a baby.
Yes.
So,
You're being too sensitive.
exactly, yeah. So like, yeah, so I realized that like, oh wow, like that kind of stuff can manifest into like physical things. And that was like my first introduction to that, you know? So yeah, 17, got out of that. Sadly though, the courts aren't exactly, you know, court got involved, mom and dad fight in court, got stuck back in the house, etc.
Right.
Made my way out, yeah. But it gave me like an idea of like, oh wow, my life can be this nice and this relaxing, and I really want my life to be that nice and that relaxing, you know? So when the court thing back and forth was happening, I was still in the women's shelter. And then after that, then we ended up finding an apartment, thank God, you know, because like they only let you stay there for like 3 months. And then from there, you get moved to like a second location where it's not as nicely housed. Because like in the location that I was in, I got to have like my own room with my mom and my sister, you know. And then there was like a few different stories. So yeah, so I was like at the bottom story, and I was in a room with me, my mom, my sister, and then there's like a kitchen area, living room area, and that area is like communal, I want to say, you know? So then there's like two other families that were living in their own bedrooms, and then we would all share the communal living area, you know? So that was actually a really nice situation, because the next step is if you don't find a location to move to by that 3-month mark, well, now there is a second location that you can go to, but it's like just open, completely open. So it's just beds that are completely open in like a whole room, kind of a situation. And it's more so like, oh, you need a place to stay, you come over here and you sleep, kind of a thing, you know? They still had rules and regulations, but I think it's a lot more of what like people imagine, you know, when they think about that kind of a situation. So thankfully we found an apartment in time. We were there for a moment, I want to say like a couple months, while that whole back and forth was going on with my dad, because he was reporting us as like being like missing, you know, or like lost and whatnot. Yeah, so cops called, figuring out what's going on. The women's shelter explained to them, you know, we have to keep the family, me, my mom, my sister, the family over here. They're in a really bad situation, that kind of a thing. And then the court, you know, so that kind of a stuff, yeah.
So it was a lot of like, back and forth, still chaotic, but like that's when you finally felt like safety.
Yeah, even though it was like super chaotic with the whole court thing, I was just like, okay, well at least I don't have to like be scared of someone like going in my room.
Like, this is nice.
Like, yeah, this is insanely nice.
Yeah,
like,
this is refreshing.
I'd rather feel anger than fear. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
every time I would hear like an update about my dad, or like an update about like, oh, like this happened, or we have to do this or something, it was just like, I prefer this feeling of anger than fear and paranoia so much more, you know? And I feel so much more relaxed
yes,
with
no,
that,
absolutely.
you know? As silly as that sounds, being angry, but yeah. So it was definitely a much better moment in my life, I would say.
Definitely. So, okay, so that's all going on, and you're 17 years old at the time, right? And so from 17, where you go from there, like after the apartment, like what is the next step to then realize like, okay, I need to like kind of find those outlets and then eventually lead to modeling?
Well, I would say that I was already finding those outlets quite honestly right before that happened.
Okay.
So I was like 15 at the time, going to school for
Mhm.
photography and for art classes too. So that's when I was finding those kinds of outlets, you know, and that's when I would get upset with my subjects, my main one being my sister, not being able to portray what I needed her to portray. So that's kind of where it more or less started. And then, funny enough, when we did the whole runaway thing, you know, it
Mhm.
was literally my 17th birthday. So I was 16. It was literally on my birthday because we were just like, oh, he's not gonna suspect we're all going out to dinner, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say that like all of the self-expression, because I was really into makeup during that time too.
Yeah.
So all of the like fun little looks and stuff like that, and the little photos I was taking was predominantly when I was end of 15, mainly 16, got out of the place. I was 17. And that was like, my birthday's like June 20th. So around the summertime, you know. Um, then had to go back into school and thankfully was able to keep pursuing that creative outlet even more once I was back in school, 17. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so it kind of was like a slow build up to modeling. So I want to go back into like what it was like to finally be like the subject of the photos. We talked a little bit about like you know a photo that you did recently and what that kind of like represented for you at the time. Um, can you talk to me more about like what it was like to finally be like the subject and like what your feelings were at the time and like how it helped you process like just the chaos that you felt growing up.
Yeah. I would say that like well, when I was first being the subject for my own photos, you know, it was really nice because I was able to I wasn't really the type of person that would ever cry in front of someone. You know, I
Mm.
felt like a lot of shame when it came to that, which part of the household I grew up in, you know. But I
Mhm.
felt a lot of shame when it came to crying or feeling like sad and stuff like that. Um, so a lot of like the beginning stuff where I was my own subject for my own photos was like trying to express that, you know, as best as I could with all the little fun little makeup special effects that I did, you know.
Yeah.
So I took some photos trying to express that a bit, and then once I started becoming the subject for other people's photos, in the beginning I actually touched something a little different for me that I wasn't expecting at first. Because with the disassociation, I also have like moments of depersonalization, you know, as well,
Mhm.
which makes it really difficult for me to like see what I look like
Mm.
physically, like in the
Okay.
mirror, as odd
Yeah.
as that might sound, also.
Wow, how does that
So
work? I mean, like what's tell me more about that experience.
it just like, it was really odd because like every time, whenever I have those moments, you know, every time I look in the mirror, I don't look the same as I did the last time.
Mm.
Like little things might change. Like my lips might look a little bit bigger, they make a little smaller, my head does, my eyes do. They look, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like it looks insanely odd. It looks like uncanny, like an uncanny version of myself every time. Um, and sometimes that uncanny version looks the same a few times in a row. Uh, but I can still tell that it's not me. You know, like I could still
Mm.
tell that what I'm seeing is not physically me. So when I started taking like photos with other people, I don't know what it did. I feel like it was a trick to my brain, but it was a really cool situation because I was just like, this is how other people are viewing me in these photos. And as somehow I was able to like disconnect my body from who I was as that person in the photo. So I feel like that's another big core thing of like, that's not me in the photo. That's a character. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It helped
right.
create that kind of like mental connection for me. And at first it made me like super self-conscious because I was just like, oh my God, what do I even like? I can't even tell like if I am having like a good day. Do I look puffy? Do I look bloated? I can't even tell, you know, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Um, and I would come out with the photos and then I would look through them just like, oh my God, I love these so much. Like
Mhm.
these are so gorgeous. I love them so much. Thank you so much. And it was just like, it helped release like this weight off my shoulder. when it came to that. And then yeah, it was just really cool to see myself from like someone else's perspective, just kind of, and also because like I like to collaborate a lot, you know. I love seeing what people imagine me as, if that makes sense, when it comes to being a part of their sets and a part of their concepts.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, I love this. Like, I love being able to see myself outside from my own eyes, you know, seeing
Yeah.
myself through someone else's lens. So it was really nice in the beginning. It hit in a different kind of way, I would say, than I was
Right.
expecting. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really like fascinating and beautiful. It's almost like modeling helped you see yourself a bit more clearly, or at
Yeah.
least from a different perspective.
Exactly.
But like that's information for you to kind of understand, like, oh, this is how like someone else is like seeing me or viewing me, because at first you didn't really have that information, or like you couldn't even tell like what you were seeing in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
that's beautiful.
Thank you. But yeah, no, it was really like nice, and that's a really big reason. I was just like, you know what, I just want to maybe keep on being people's subjects, you know.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of kept on pushing me to be like, okay, I think maybe I'm having a bad day, you
Mhm.
know, but maybe I'm actually not. And maybe it's just in my head. I need to get over myself, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really like eye opening for me, I would say, starting with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like times when you were sad, or like you couldn't tell how you felt, were those the moments where you would like jump in front of a camera and be like, okay, let me see like what I could be feeling, and like kind of sense that through the photo once it was done?
No, for those days when I like completely couldn't tell, well, not completely, but when I couldn't tell what I looked like in a mirror, staying away from camera, not touching
Wow.
it. Because
Okay.
usually it's like a deformed version of myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a canny version. I'm like, that looks scary.
Yeah, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to take a picture of myself. What the hell?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I'd stay away from a camera. I'd stay away from a photo. If anything, it would cause me to just want to stay inside all the time. And like I feel like it caused me to like be really inward with myself, especially when it came to like because this is something that like I grew up with having a hard time. So it caused me to be super super inward in myself, like in middle school and high school and that kind of thing. So I'm just like, I feel like my face looks drawn down or something, when in reality I look completely fine. But I don't want anyone to look at me because I'm seeing myself like this, you know. And at first I thought it was insanely real until I realized like every time I'm having like a spell of depression, this is kicking in. I think something maybe isn't really connecting, you know.
Yeah.
But definitely within like middle school up until like late high school, I wasn't sure what was going on, you know. So it really caused me to feel like super self-conscious. So again, those being the years that like I was getting into the photography and stuff like that, no, I'm not taking a picture.
Yeah,
you know,
like forget about it. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't want to risk it.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
Make myself feel worse? No, thank you. I'm
Yeah,
good.
I'll pass. It's interesting how that happens. Like when you're internally feeling like unclear and like kind of dark, it just like puts this filter on everything else in your life. Can you talk to me more about like what conflicts you come across in the industry, and just as a model as well?
Other conflicts too would be like working with people that are not nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of the way to put it.
Yeah.
But
Just awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because like there's a lot of parties that are involved when it comes to creating something, you know. And depending on that creation, whatever you're creating, there's even more people involved or less or whatever. So like I would say that I've had some pretty negative moments in the past, like being in things that are not just a one-on-one sort of situation, you know, like doing things for like fashion shows and as an example, you know. I feel like that's been a really big thing where it's just like, yeah, it's a lot of fun and I love this and I love the glamour that, you know, it portrays and whatnot. I love getting my makeup done by someone and my hair done. But I don't love hearing someone yelling obscenities to other models, you know? And also, like, I don't even know how to say it, but like a level of like, or a sense somewhat of like classism. I don't know if that's the word, 'cause classism is more about like monetary, but monetary in recognition, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like, you know, there's like obviously some people are going to be favored, you know, because I mean, they're great models in that kind of a situation. But also, you can very, very openly see that some designers, as an example, will belittle maybe people too, like, not that not anyone should be belittled, but like way too much to be like, oh, it's because this person isn't good at their job. It's like, no, it's because they need an outlet and this person really doesn't have a voice, so they're going to yell at this person, you know? They're going to let out their frustrations on this person. Same thing with like coordinators or like producers, kind of a thing. So like, again, the more people that are involved, sadly, it's just like, okay, which one of these 10 people is going to be maybe not a great person in comparison to just your one-on-one. You know what I mean? At that point, it's like the odds are a lot higher. So there's like some sort of negatives that I would say that come from it. Is just sadly like a lot of people just like bursting out. And I understand it's like a stressful sort of thing that we do, you know, and there's like a lot of coordinating and there's trying to get everything taken care of and everything's always being run super last minute. But at the same time, it's just like if you're not in a position where you can keep yourself as a professional, maybe don't be a professional, you know? I've ran into like seeing some people like just get like body shamed, you know? And it's just like, why are you body shaming someone that you like hired to be here? You know, that you asked to be here just because you're having a bad day or a bad time? That's not okay. And then also just like, again, just like belittling just to belittle or just shouting to shout kind of a situation, to have like a sense of like power, you know, which isn't okay, you know, it really isn't okay. And also just like the conditions sometimes that we have to go through as well aren't exactly the world's greatest conditions either. Again, like I feel like a lot of people assume like, oh, you're getting like your makeup and your hair done and stuff like that. Like, yeah, well, someone's yelling in the back of our ears saying how horrible we are. So like, so yeah, like you only get to see little snippets, you know. And then also too, just like honestly, like a recent example I would say is I had this walk that I was supposed to do or that I did do, and they were saying that they were gonna have like food for everyone. They were like, oh yeah, come like super super early. By super early, at least for me, super early, driving all the way from like my area to that location. They were asking everyone to be there like I think it was like 9 a.m. or like 9:30. They're like, don't worry about breakfast, don't worry about lunch. And I think they were also implying dinner because we're gonna have food for you guys the entire time. Everyone got there like 9, 10 a.m. Some people because they were already like dressed. They already knew what they were gonna wear, you know, for their walks or whatever. And we went the entire day, and we couldn't leave the room either because the coordinator was like demanding that no one moves, changes, gets anything ready or anything until they get there. They got there like 5 hours late, so everyone was stuck in the room. But like the entire day went without eating at all, which is like, here's the thing, it's fine if you don't have like that kind of a service. Just like say it ahead of time so people can pack their lunches, you know? So like let people know so they can prepare and pack their little lunches and stuff like that. That's just like a small example of it. But yeah, just like went the entire day without eating or even like getting any water until towards the end of it. I think once enough people started complaining about it. And then me listening, watching, I noticed that there were like a few girls that had like plates of food. And I was like, where did you guys get that? They're like, we snuck out and we went around the area and we got some of the food that's supposed to be for the guests. And I was like, okay. So then I like ran over there. I did the same thing. I like ran over there and like got myself a plate, came back, and this girl like hands literally shaking, you know? Because the thing is too is just like a lot of the people that are like involved in this kind of a thing are like on strict diets, you know, like eat in specific times, eat specific portions, are in specific kind of, you know, needs of what they need to intake and whatnot. So she was literally like shaking, you know?
Because she hadn't eaten.
Yeah, exactly. And or maybe it was a stress too, who knows? A combination of both. I know for me it was a combination of both. So then like she like asked me to like take her to go get like a plate, and I was just like, yeah, like once you're done getting your like makeup done or whatever, like come with me. I'm literally just sitting here like I was about to eat. And we go out there and there was nothing. Obviously everything was completely taken. So like I shared with her like a little chicken wing or whatever, cut that up, we shared it in half, and I gave her like a little bit of the little portion of rice that I had too, you know. And we ate that. We were just like laughing. She's like, "Oh my God, this is like exactly what people expect us to eat all the time." She's like, "Take a picture." Yeah, she's like, "Take a picture of this." I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
and I was just like laughing, and we like went back in the room, and we just had that, you know. But it's like a lot of moments like that where it's just like you're told that you're gonna have this and this and this service, and then you come in and it's not like that whatsoever, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
The expectations are not met.
yeah, no, and it's like
Yeah.
such a common thing. At this point, I'm just like I always come in with my own at least base makeup taken care of, my hair at least done in some sort of a fashion.
Yeah.
You know, I bring in my own snacks at least, you know, because I have no idea. And that's another thing too, is they tell you like, oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do this for like only like 3 5 hours, and next you know it takes like your entire day, you know, your entire day. And usually when it comes to like the way that you're working, they might pay you by the event, you know, versus like by the hour. I mean, there's some occasions where it's by the hour too, but now it's like, okay, I just like gave my entire day away, barely made any money, had to pay for driving all the way over here, parking over the way where I'm parking, you know, kind of a thing, driving all the way back, taking care of tolls as well, and then like just putting in your own time and effort kind of a thing, plus getting like berated as well. It's just like
Right.
it all stacks, you know?
Yeah. And then, so I'm curious, like, what are some of the things that you've heard people say to other models? Like, there was a lot of like body shaming, which is like crazy to me because you literally hired this model and then
Yeah.
you're gonna turn around and body shame them. But I'm curious, like, what sorts of things have you heard in the past?
Um, well, I mean, definitely the body shaming thing, you know. I mean, in that moment, I wasn't particularly in the room as it happened. I came downstairs and then I saw everyone just quiet and like looking to the floor, you know. I think like as a way to like avert
Yeah.
attention to yeah, to themselves being like the next person to get yelled at. Um, but yeah, no, I noticed like the one girl just looked sad. Everyone else looked scared. She looked sad. You know what I mean? So then I like asked one of the other models what happened, and they told me what happened, and I was just like, that's insane, you know? And other situations too, where like designers and producers, but I've seen more occasions with designers will like, yeah, sexually like harass the models, you know? Messaging them, telling them to like do X, Y, or Z thing, or to not show up for the walk, or to not show up for the situation um, of the shoot, or something like that. Uh, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane, you know? Cause and then that's another thing too. Is just like, yeah, this kind of stuff happens. I feel like a lot of people assume that maybe it is something that happens, but then they come back and say like, well, if it's really what happening, why isn't anyone like talking about it, you know? And the reality of things is like a lot of people are like put in contracts where they're not really themselves able to speak out loud about that kind of a sort of situation. Um, so you're just kind of stuck, you know?
You can't say anything.
Yeah,
Speak up
you
about
can't
it.
speak up about it. And then let's say you do decide to speak up about it, okay? Well, now you're taking a model that's making barely usually enough when you're first starting out. Sometimes not even anything at all, you know, building that portfolio. And the designers know that, you know, they know that like, oh, this person is just starting out. They're so young too. They're so young too. Like, they're not going to have any money to go to court. I can just bury them. I can sue them for defamation now, you know, kind of a sort of situation. So it's just like now you're putting yourself in a position where, okay, you just lost a little emotionally and now you're losing monetarily, you know, and it just strings on the stress of it even more. So yeah, a lot of that. And then like, I don't know, I've had my personal situations also with like, with that kind of sort of thing too, you know, but more so with promoters and stuff like that, you know, just trying to press that kind of thing, like sexual stuff also, you know. I think, and that's what makes me also insanely like shocked is just like, how do you go and do something like that and expect no one to say anything, you know, or at least check you on it. It's like, how often have you done this to the point that you feel so open and free to do that, you know? It's just like, I don't know, it's just really crazy for me to think of, especially here. Like, we're not
Yeah.
in LA.
Oh my God, I
We're
know.
not in Paris Fashion Week.
Can you imagine if we were in LA or like 10 times worse? But
So I'm just like,
yeah.
that's insane that people feel like they have like this sense of like authority to be able to do something like that, you know?
Like make like sexual comments towards a model is what you're saying, or what exactly
Yeah, like
do you
sexual
mean?
comments, and like also like I haven't viewed it, but again, word of mouth, like designers tried to like physically assault models too, you know, like yeah. So it's just like I don't understand why they feel like they have such this large sense of power. I mean, I guess from the contracts, but at the same time, it's just like, where do you as a person? Why do you as a person think that it's okay to do this and feel justified to do these things? Like, how do you do something like this
Right.
and then feel completely fine the rest of the day?
Yeah, you can
Like,
disconnect and
I don't know. That's
disassociate.
just so odd to me, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how people project in that way.
Yeah. It's insanely odd.
I'm curious, like, I'm curious for your perspective, like how, in what ways is this industry still backwards and behind, and how do you want to see this industry change going forward?
I would say that it's honestly behind and backwards when it comes to like the rights of people. Like with everything we were talking about when it comes to like these kind of contracts where people are like, oh my God, I'm like stuck having to be quiet kind of a thing. There's a huge necessity of knowledge. There's so much knowledge that needs to be passed down for people. Um, like, you know, maybe don't sign an NDA unless you can make sure that you're doing it with someone that you maybe have already worked with consecutively and feel 100% safe with, you know, before you do that. Realize the implications of an NDA. Also realize that that's not your only need. Like, that's not the only contract that exists in this world. Like, advocate for yourself, push for yourself, you know? And if whoever is like working with you is pressing super, super hard that they don't want to go towards a direction that you're trying to go towards, and it makes like no sense, like, why do you need me to sign something like this for a fashion show kind of a thing, when we're literally releasing the product right now as I'm walking out.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something weird going on, you know? Maybe there's something that you should like avoid. So like I feel like there's like a lot of knowledge that really needs to be like just kind of shared and outspoken about. And also because like I think like a lot of people aren't going to like actively look for that kind of a knowledge if they don't think that there's like that high of a possibility of something like that happening to them, you know?
Right.
Like I genuinely didn't think there was that high of a possibility. You know, it's just like, oh, that's the stuff that you see in the movies. Well, there's a reason why you see it in the movies, I guess. So, but yeah, to get back to it, I mean, just general knowledge I think really needs to be passed down, and also just like I don't know, like rights, you know, in general. I mean, there's some rights that are being passed down, thankfully, are being looked into when it comes to like compensation for models and whatnot. I'm not sure how far that's gonna go, you know, but I feel like that's something that really needs to look into as well. I mean, they're you know, general contractors in a way, you know, but at the same time, like if you're working for a company or someone like that, like maybe you should make sure that you're going to be well protected, where like if you end up getting hurt, you're well compensated for that, you know? Because I mean, your body is your source of income. Right. Imagine like hurting yourself while you're working because a photographer really wants you to do like a crazy stunt for a photo, and now you're completely out of like work kind of a thing, you know? So I think things like that are like really important, and also just like awareness of one another. I feel like I was saying earlier, like how is it that people can do like these really insane, rude, crude things and then not like feel bad or weird or anything about it.
Just walk away from it.
Yeah, exactly. Like what is it in like business school they have you take, what's that one class? I took it. It's like the class ethics.
Oh, ethics.
We need ethics.
Yeah, there's not a lot of ethics going on around here.
Yeah, so like everyone needs a class in ethics. I mean, at least like I don't know. I think that we're like backpedaling on that. Like they're at this point in time, it's like, and especially in this day and age, you know, like we're all like, I feel like this generation, all these generations living right now are really working towards just like advocating on like being just people, you know? So it's just like, how are you not gonna have like some sort of sense of ethics at this point in time? It's like
Right.
all over the place. At least for me, maybe it's just my feed, but it's all over the place, you know?
The conversations are happening.
Exactly. The
People are talking
conversations
about
are,
it.
yeah, and there should be more conversations apparently, because, yeah, it's not being pushed enough. So, like, I think that's a thing. Also, the inclusivity, right? I think there was like a really, really big push for inclusivity for people for a moment a few years back. You know, they're like, hey, we need to have more people of color on like our magazines and our walks and that kind of stuff. Let's involve more bodies, you know? Which was definitely a great direction that we were trying to work on. And thankfully, you know, like, did we include more people of color on stuff? Yeah, but you only included them on like the really, and this is where it's like weird, because it's just like great and awesome that we have them on huge magazines and huge runways. We're seeing more people on that, but that's the only way you're seeing it. You know, it's like if you look at the spectrum of or the percentage, you know, of the models and their like backgrounds and ethnicities and stuff like that, it's still insanely skewed, because it's just like, yeah, you're getting these people, but you're kind of having them as like show ponies, you know, trying to give like the idea of inclusivity, but no one else is really following that trend that they're trying to start. So I feel like still needs a huge push in inclusivity for people, not just like ethnicities, but also just like body types and whatnot. And that, I feel like that was like a really big like show also. That like circumstance that I saw where like you invited this plus size model and then you shame them for being plus sized, you know? It's just like that just shows that you really didn't want them there. You just brought them there for show.
Yeah.
You don't care for them as a person. Right. You know? You see them as less than, which is just gross. Like, why do you feel that way? I don't know. It's like, this person's a hardworking person. They drove all the way out here, got their makeup done, and now they deal with you. Like, are you serious?
It sounds like we're pretty behind still, backwards.
I would say we're still,
Even though, you know, I mean, for me, looking at the media, it seems like it's getting more like inclusive, right? But like from your perspective as a model, it seems like, okay, yeah, we are behind. Like we're bringing on the models, but they're not being compensated well, and they're being verbally abused, which doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And again, like, we're seeing them on like bigger outlets of media, which is great. That's a great start. But honestly, over the past few years, it has been back trending, you know, because it was like a splurge for a moment, and now it's been back setting again. But again, there's still in bigger media, which is great. But it's like the local fashion shows, smaller magazines, and it's like these are the places that were beginning models start to be able to get into those bigger media roles. These smaller starts are not being as inclusive, you know? Which is necessary to keep on having like people of color that are great at their profession be able to be a face down the road. Yeah,
absolutely. I've been thinking a lot about this question lately, because I think I've been struggling with it within myself. Just this idea of like, who was I before society and the world told me who I should be? So that's my next question. Who was 6 before the world and society told you who you should be?
a kid. I don't know. I feel like it's really hard because again, like, I feel like a part of the whole world and society, like a lot of that voice came from like, again, my parents growing up and not growing in exactly the world's greatest household. That was something that was like really pushed down my throat at like a really, really young age, you know? So I would say that like the last time I felt truly who I was before like those kinds of things were imposed on me, I was probably like 7, you know? So adventurous, happy, not self-conscious, would only look in the mirror to make sure I didn't have like hair in my mouth, you know, that kind of a thing. An animal lover. I love cats so much, you know?
That's awesome.
So I would say like that would be like the last time or the last years where I really felt like, oh, I am like untouched, if that makes sense. Like I am like, I haven't really been like manipulated by my outsides, you know, changed as a person or like my mental thoughts kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I would say that maybe like the outside world implying itself more towards me versus like, and that's why it's so hard because like I feel like a lot of like the things that like were imposed on me were imposed at such a young age too, not just from like the I mean yes from the upbringing, but also just like culturally also, you know, because like in a Hispanic household it's just like you have certain expectations of like, oh, you're supposed to be good at this and this and this and this for practice when you get married, you know. And that's just like that's like a thought that gets implanted, like at least for me implanted at such a young age, you know. So like I had like those kinds of like expectations like at a really young age, and then from there like maybe closer to like 12-ish, 13-ish, maybe 12, I want to say. Now I started noticing like, oh, the world has their set of expectations as well, which brought in some of my, I mean, my household's expectations come from the world, but I can visibly see that there's like certain world expectations that started coming in, you know, which traditionally has to do with like, oh, you're supposed to be like ladylike and like, you know, we have like this expectation of what you're supposed to look like and do and that kind of a thing. So I would say that I started noticing those more like around that age frame. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of hard to even for myself to think like, what was I before? Like,
Everything just starts
yeah,
compiling onto you.
exactly. It's a little difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of relate to like being adventurous, like from my own experience. I think like when I was a kid, I was definitely more like whimsical and kind of, I don't know, like spunky.
Spunky?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
spunky. And like that's still inside of me now, but I feel like I have to fight harder to preserve those parts of myself,
Yeah.
you know? And so I'm wondering if like that's also your experience of like you know that part of you is there, but you have to like really like try fucking hard to like preserve that through like hobbies or, you know, I don't know, reading or consuming media or whatever it is that like helps you bring you back to yourself, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I relate to you with that. I feel like when I was like younger, also the spunkiness was there, you know. I was like more verbally loud about my thoughts and whatnot. Um, Adventurous, obviously, right? But yeah, no, and the whimsical portion, I relate to you on that too. I like loved playing play pretend so much, and I feel like that's kind of what happens in my photos now. So when you're asking like how it's preserved, I feel like that's a way as to how, because when I'm taking like these kinds of like collaborative photos, I'm kind of like creating like my own little scene, my own little world, kind of like around me, you know. So it's like me playing like play pretend like that way. And then the spunkiness also, like some of the stuff that I've done for photos, maybe I shouldn't have been doing, you know, going to abandoned buildings or like just kind of like doing a lot of like urban X stuff, you know, urbex stuff. So I feel like that's where it's just like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and have fun, and I'm gonna get dirty, and I'm gonna get grimy, but it's gonna be great. I'm going through a sewer, you know, kind of a thing, and taking some photos. Why not? Like, cause I can. So I feel like those are like little ways that I've like have preserved or helped also elevate and push out, you know, through that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's super cool. You like went into a sewer for a photo one time?
Yeah, I used to be really into like doing like graffiti and stuff like that. Yeah, so I like knew some of the sewers throughout like the cities that I was living in, so I would go down there and I would bring some of my photographer friends that would like taking photos of me doing that kind of stuff, or we would go to like abandoned buildings or abandoned like locations and take photos there. And it was really nice because it gives like a sense of like being in your again in your own little world. You know, no one's there. No one's there to see you or anything besides you and your friends. So,
That's super cool.
mhm.
Yeah, I like
Super
that.
nice.
Taking photos in sewers. I like that a lot. That's super cool. Okay, so if you could go back in time to your 13-year-old self or whatever younger self you feel connected to, what would you say to that younger self?
I think I would tell them to just keep going. you know, because when I was at that age, I already knew I wanted to get the hell out of my house. So like,
Yes, yeah.
so I feel like just keep pursuing what you want to pursue. Don't stop pursuing what you want to pursue. Make sure that you treat yourself the way you would want your little sister to be treated. Make sure that you treat yourself the way you would want the little version of you to be treated. Don't allow anyone to mistreat you from what you want someone that you care about to not be treated like. So I would say those would probably be some of the biggest things that I would try to like get through to my head.
Definitely. Yeah, those are good. Just like telling your younger self to like show up for themselves and like speak up when needed, kind of thing. If you could give a piece of advice to your past, present, and future self, what would those pieces of advice be?
I would say don't stop exploring your feelings. I feel like that's really important, you know? Because I was such a shut-in when it came to like allowing myself to feel my feelings, and I just had so much backlogged and so much repressed within myself. A lot great things happened when I started doing that, even though it hurt so much. A lot of great things. A lot of great things are still continuing to happen right now by me doing that. So I'm sure that that's something that's going to keep helping me go forward and elevate. So yeah.
Would that be advice for your past self, or your future self, or present self? All of them?
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Very universal. Is there anything that you feel like you wanted me to ask you that I missed?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't go over, or like touch on or expand on more?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like we crossed everything, yeah.
Okay, cool. So where can people find you? And tell us a little bit more about what your next thing is.
Yeah, well, still doing runways, still trying to pursue that. Right now, I'm really trying to like push myself more into doing more like high-end fashion sort of situations, but also still a lot of fun collaborative things too. So if anyone wants to ever reach me, they could always do so through Instagram. That's a quick and easy way. It's a numerical 6, IXXCORE. Numerical 6 IXX is that tag name. Also email. I have my email linked on there as well. And then from there we'll go forward. We'll see. what else I'll provide. We'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Six. I really appreciate you coming here to share your story with us, and just being as like open and vulnerable as you've been, throughout this entire process. And I know that a lot of the things that you have talked about today is going to help a lot of people. It's going to get people thinking about, their lives and their story, and if they are in the modeling industry, hopefully they can also find safety and reassurance in what you shared today. So thank you so much again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here also. Yeah. Thanks for being alive.
Yay, we're alive. What is this? Oh, let's say like, we'll say like, this is the Deep Take Project.